In the interest of not doing just a bunch of videos that are book reviews, I decided to try to think of some book-related topics. This is going to be kind of hard for me because I'm not reading like I was, but I thought of something. I want to talk about books that I have sitting on my shelves that I've been really wanting to read, but I've been avoiding for one reason or another. So basically, all of these qualities, and I'd say there's about 4 qualities that will make me kind of avoid a book, can be ultimately summed up into will take me a long time to read. I have a really hard time being stuck in the same book. Drives me crazy, I get antsy, I start freaking out because I'm kind of not the fastest reader. I don't have a lot of free time to read, so I want quick reads. I don't want to be stuck in something. I get really nervous getting into any book that's going to take me a long time. But let's get a little more specific. So what are certain things that make me get through a book really slowly? The number one being, of course, if a book is huge. Big books are intimidating for me. I tend to avoid them like the plague. Now, there are exceptions. If it's a YA book and it's kind of big, I'm not as nervous about it. I mean, YA is pretty quick, usually has big text. I can handle that. But I do tend to get nervous around most large novels, most big books. I'm just like, no, too much. So to provide you a good example of a book I've been really wanting to read, As Meat Loves Salt. I've been wanting to read this for quite a while. It's huge. And the text is not the largest, but just the size of this alone made me go, maybe I don't want to read that bad. I can wait a while, right? And as a result, it has just been sitting on my shelf. I'd say the next quality, and this isn't one of the main ones, but another quality that can make me avoid a book is if it has small text. Small text is usually not such a big deal to me, especially with thinner books, and obviously this isn't a big deal on the Kindle at all. But I find small text can be really deceiving, and if I open up if I'm like, oh, this book looks like a good size, I'll read this, and I open up and it has small text, I put it back. Here's a great example. I've been borrowing this from my mom for like more than a year. Snowflower the Secret Fan has really small, all right, I'm putting it right up to there, but it has really small text, and that immediately intimidates me. There's another quality about this book that has been making me avoid it, but I'll get into that in just a moment. So yeah, there's another example of something that just makes me go, I'll just avoid that. I don't have to read it anytime soon. Another smaller quality is I have a hard time with my books where it's like a series and they're all bound up into one volume. I have a hard time reading those because I like to read only one book at a time in series, and I usually read several books in between. It's just what I like to do. I mean, I know it's weird, but if the book is like one big volume, I feel much more like obligated to actually read the whole book. And as a result, like the whole series at once, and as a result, that makes me avoid it because it takes longer. An example is my mom let me borrow. Yeah, borrowed books seem to be a problem too, huh? My mom let me borrow Wool Omnibus, and it sounds like something I'd be interested in, but it's huge. And each individual book of Wool is actually not that long, but because it's all bound together like this, it just makes me really want to avoid it, unfortunately. Last reason I might avoid certain books is based on genre. Certain genres take longer to read, are more difficult. That's just how it goes. And there are certain genres that I still really like, but I have a hard time with. One great example being classics. Classics tend to be older, they tend to use more archaic language depending on how classic we're going here, and as a result, that can be a difficult read and a lot slower. And it's not that I don't like critically thinking, it's just, it can be more, it's slower. One example of a classic, Gone with the Wind. Okay, this has a lot that makes me not want to read it. It's gigantic, it has tiny text, it's a classic. Everyone I know loves this book, says I need to read this book, I'm gonna love this book. No, it's too big, I can't handle it. I need to like spend time thinking about it. Basically, books that are more in the line of literature and that are a little more thought-provoking. For example, this book, the same one, again, strikes me as having those qualities. And as a result, I kind of avoid those books too sometimes. It's not that I don't like being a critical thinker. I do. It's just sometimes I don't want to sit there thinking when I'm reading, and I just want to read and have it be a breeze, you know? Um, Last genre I have a hard time with is nonfiction. I love nonfiction. I love learning. Nonfiction's probably one of my favorite genres. My husband and his family, they love nonfiction. But it's difficult to read, and it takes me a long time, much longer to read nonfiction. So, for example, Feathers here. I've been dying to read this book. It's got a beautiful cover, it's an interesting topic. I want to read it. But I haven't because it's nonfiction and I'm really nervous about how long it's going to actually take me, even though it's not that thick and the text is a reasonable size. Another example of a nonfiction book would be this one, New England Forest Through Time. My husband got this for me. It's thin. It's got pictures. The text is reasonably sized. I mean, it's like this, which makes me a little nervous. But like, because it's nonfiction and it's got the text like on both sides like that, I immediately start backing off. Like, it's like, ooh, I don't know, I can't read that. Again, easily intimidated, and I want to go fast, fast, fast. So lastly, I have an example of a book that is the ultimate culmination of all the problems I have with reading a book. And this is a book I will ultimately avoid for the longest, and that is Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. It's huge. It's got pretty small text considering how huge it is, and it's nonfiction. At least it's not a series, I suppose. When it comes to reading these books that I know are going to be slow, I kind of have to prep myself. I also sometimes read them, like I'll read them for a few days and then I'll switch over to a different book that's more of a fast-paced book, and it works out well for me when I do that. Because otherwise I'm going to torture myself. Anyway, hope you're all doing well. I'd love to hear other people's opinions on kind of books that you find that you avoid and sit on your shelf for way too long because you're just like, I want to read it, but I'm really curious what other people's opinions are and what are other people's hang-ups. Anyway, I hope you're all doing well. Bye!